It was a warm summer evening in the small town of Maplewood, where the scent of blooming daisies filled the air. Jenna stood at the edge of the park, leaning against the wooden fence that surrounded the playground. The sun was low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the scene, but her mood was anything but bright. She watched as children ran around, laughter echoing in the air, and felt a tight knot form in her stomach. Jenna had always been the type to roll her eyes at the town meetings, where everyone took themselves too seriously. The debates about stop signs and park benches felt trivial to her. Tonight, though, was different. Tonight, the mayor was coming to speak. She had seen him many times before, always with the same rehearsed smile and scripted story. And yet, despite her resentment towards the town's politics, her heart raced with a mix of hope and cynicism. Her best friend Sarah had asked, watching as Jenna prepared to attend the meeting. "I don't know," Jenna had replied, shrugging. As Jenna stood there, she spotted a flash of blue in the distance. It was the mayor's car pulling into the parking lot. People began to gather, buzzing like bees around a hive, their excitement palpable. Even Jenna couldn't help but feel a flicker of curiosity. With a sigh, Jenna pushed herself off the fence and walked toward the crowd. She kept her arms crossed, a protective shield. The mayor stepped out of his car, greeted by applause and cheerful voices. He was tall and confident, wearing a crisp suit that seemed to shine in the fading light. He waved, his smile bright and blinding like a beacon in the night. As he approached the stage, Jenna took a step back. This was just a show, she reminded herself. He would stand up there, speak about progress, and promise more changes that never came. Still, a small part of her felt a longing for someone to finally care about their town, for someone to make promises worth believing. The mayor took the microphone and cleared his throat, the crowd quieting to hear him. "Thank you all for being here tonight." The crowd clapped and Jenna's eyes rolled. She could already envision the scripted lines that were coming. Yet as he spoke, something shifted. There was a sincerity in his voice that tugged at Jenna's heart. He spoke of a new park development, of improving local schools, and even of helping small businesses. As he continued, her eyes narrowed, searching for the catch, the insincerity that she had come to expect. But the more he spoke, the more she started to listen. He remembered details about the town-specific names of local businesses, stories of residents who had overcome struggles, the very same children playing in the park behind her. It was as if he wasn't just reading from a script, but genuinely loved this town and its people. He gestured and Jenna's heart skipped. Who could it be? A woman stepped up, her smile wide and bright. She wasn't a politician, but rather a beloved teacher from the local high school. Jenna recognized her from community projects. She said, her voice warm and inviting. Jenna's eyes softened, realizing that in this moment the mayor was not just a politician, but a bridge connecting people, hopes, and futures. Her arm unfolded slightly, the tension in her body easing. She could almost believe in the promise of change. Then something unexpected happened. The mayor announced that he would be shaking hands with townsfolk, encouraging everyone to come up and share their thoughts. A murmur of excitement spread through the crowd like wildfire. Jenna felt a surge of anxiety mixed with interest. She watched as people approached, shaking hands, smiles spreading across their faces. "Come on, Jenna," Sarah urged, nudging her playfully. Jenna hesitated. "Just go." The truth was, she wanted more for Maplewood. With a deep breath, Jenna stepped forward, the crowd in front of her seeming to part like the sea, leaving her standing face to face with the mayor. He greeted her, his smile genuine. "Jenna," she replied, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. I've seen your efforts around the town." His eyes lit up with interest. "Thank you, Jenna, that means a lot to me." Her head spun with thoughts. This was it, the moment she had waited for. "I think we need to focus on the youth," Jenna started, passion spilling out of her. He nodded, listening intently. "Absolutely. I was thinking about creating after-school activities that focus on arts and sports. Something that shows them we believe in their future," she elaborated, feeling the words flow more easily as she spoke to him. He said, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "I'll make sure to look into it." She felt her heart race. "Yes." The mayor reached out his hand to shake hers, and in that moment all of Jenna's doubt vanished. There was a power in that handshake, a promise that could change everything. As their hands met, a rush of warmth spread through her, igniting a flicker of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. The crowd around them was cheering, and as Jenna pulled away, she knew she had crossed an invisible line. She was no longer just a spectator, rolling her eyes from the sidelines. She was part of something bigger. As the evening went on, Jenna felt lighter. She joined her friends, who were bubbling with conversation about the mayor's speech. "You see that?" Sarah exclaimed, and Jenna couldn't help but beam. "Yeah, I think for the first time I feel like maybe my voice matters. Like maybe we can create the change we want," Jenna mused, still riding the high of that handshake. Days turned into weeks, and Jenna found herself diving into brainstorming sessions with the mayor's office. They worked late nights and weekends, driven by a shared vision. The town buzzed with a renewed energy, and for once it felt like everyone was on the same page. Jenna would catch glimpses of the mayor at the grocery store or at community events. Each time he would greet her warmly, asking for updates and encouraging her contributions. She had gone from rolling her eyes to shaking hands with him, connecting with someone who seemed genuinely invested in making Maplewood better. One sunny afternoon, as Jenna was finishing up a meeting, the mayor walked in with a group of excited children from the local schools. "Jenna, guess what? These young artists have something to show you," he announced. She turned to the kids, who were holding colorful drawings. One of them said, her eyes wide with enthusiasm. Jenna's heart swelled. "That's an amazing idea. We can make it all together," she replied, feeling this wave of pride wash over her. In that moment, Jenna realized how far she had come. The voice that had once been filled with skepticism was now bursting with hope and belief. She wasn't just a bystander anymore. She was a part of the heartbeat of Maplewood, and it felt incredible. As the mural took shape, so did a sense of community she had never anticipated. The townspeople rallied, coming together during weekends, sharing laughter, stories, and creativity. The mayor was there too, lending his hands to the cause, truly becoming a part of what made Maplewood shine. And every time Jenna stood back to admire her work, a sense of fulfillment washed over her. She realized that change wasn't just about grand speeches or promises. It was about connection, about breaking down the walls of doubt, and about believing in a shared future. She had rolled her eyes once, thinking nothing would change, yet here she was part of something real, something beautiful. The mayor had walked into her life, not just as a politician, but as a partner in hope, showing her that maybe, just maybe, one voice could set a spark. From that day on, Jenna viewed the future differently. Whenever she felt the urge to roll her eyes, she instead offered a smile. Because in the heart of Maplewood, she had discovered something more powerful than she could ever imagine: community, connection, and the strength to believe that together, they could shape their destiny. The crowd hissed as the mayor stepped onto the old, weathered stage in the town square. Tension crackled in the air, the kind of static that promised drama. Jenna stood off to the side with her arms crossed, her foot tapping the wooden planks of the stage, a rhythmic beat of impatience. She could feel her eye rolling before she even finished the thought. "Here we go again," she thought. "Here he comes to save the day," she whispered under her breath, the bitterness curling on her tongue. In her heart, she hoped for something different, something real, but all she could think about was how the mayor had promised big ideas before, only to vanish like the morning mist once the applause faded. Tonight's meeting was about the new park development, a topic they'd tackled a dozen times. The town had dreams as high as the sky, but results that rarely rose above ground level. As the mayor began to speak, Jenna forced herself to listen, rolling her eyes internally. He smiled, flashing those pearly whites like a five-star toothpaste model. The crowd leaned in, hanging onto every word. He said, gesturing wide as if he could bring those dreams to life right there. As he spoke of playgrounds and picnic areas, she fought the urge to yawn. Then something unusual happened. Jenna felt a tiny flicker of hope stir within her when she noticed the mayor talking not just about plans, but about actual people. "Fiona, you've been a champion for this community," he said, motioning toward a local activist. The crowd erupted in applause, and Jenna saw the genuine smiles that spread across faces. There was something in the air tonight, something that tugged at her skepticism and made her impossible to ignore. Still, she clung to her mistrust. Air had been in her eyes, an empty suit for too long. As the evening wore on and the mayor encouraged questions, Jenna felt the tension within her rise. She didn't want to participate. She wanted to be an observer, a critic, the girl who wouldn't fall for charisma. Suddenly, a little boy no more than 8 stood up with surprising bravery. "Mr. Mayor, are you really going to build that park?" His voice wavered with innocence but also with desperate hope. The mayor's face softened. "Absolutely." "I mean it." The boy's eyes brightened and Jenna's heart clenched slightly. He was just a kid wanting to believe in something bigger than himself. Right then, she felt a growing urge to scoff, thinking about the fragility of promises in the air. Just words, she told herself. Words don't build parks, they only build frustration. But as the crowd murmured with excitement, Jenna's defenses began to crack. She glanced around, observing the glimmer of hope in people's eyes. It was in moments like these that collective belief became a powerful tidal wave. What if, just what if, this time it was real? "Come on, Jenna." Sarah, her spirited friend, nudged her with bright eyes. Jenna shot back, a mix of fear and defiance bubbling up inside her. Her mind raced with worry. What if she made a fool of herself? But in the corner of her eye, she saw the mayor interacting with people, shaking hands and genuinely listening. He looked so different up close, not like the distant figure she often dismissed. There was a warmth emerging, a connection that seemed to light the night like the twinkling stars from above. As the meeting continued, people stepped up one by one, exchanging ideas, sharing stories, and shaking hands with the mayor. Their faces beamed with hope, and Jenna felt curious, the smoke of her doubt beginning to clear. Could a simple handshake hold such power? In a particularly animated moment, the mayor called for the townsfolk to step forward. He wanted to meet them, hear their thoughts, and share in the collective dream for Maplewood. He declared, enthusiasm pulsing through the crowd. At that very moment, hope ignited in Jenna. It spread through her like wildfire, battling against years of skepticism. Taking a deep breath, she pushed her way through the crowd toward the stage. Her heart raced with each step. Maybe it was time to speak up, to demand something more than just empty words. She called out, her voice slightly shaky but resolute. The crowd turned to her, their eyes wide, curiosity hanging in the air like a thick fog. The mayor locked eyes with her, intrigued. Great question. His gaze was steady, sincere. In that moment, the tension unraveled, and Jenna felt a flicker of something she hadn't expected: trust. I want a place where families can gather, but also where young people can create. Absolutely, that's exactly the vision we need, he answered, nodding with enthusiasm. It's what I want to build. Jenna felt the invisible chains that had held her back break apart. Then let's do it together, but it needs to be real. The mayor stepped down from the stage, walking straight to her. The crowd opened up around them as if parting for a great wave. I promise, Jenna, you won't be left out of this. He reached out his hand, and in that moment the world around her faded. It was just them, his hand outstretched, carrying the weight of all their hopes. For that brief second, Jenna's doubt dissipated. She reached out and shook his hand. The warm connection sent shivers through her. Here, in a simple gesture, the handshake was an unspoken pact. She was all in now. The cheers of the crowd swelled as hope surged like a new dawn over Maplewood. The days following that moment felt electric. Jenna immersed herself in community meetings, brainstorming sessions, and planning discussions. She watched as the mayor transformed from the guy who spoke empty words into a dedicated leader, genuinely invested in the town's revival. People rallied behind the dream: parents, kids, grandparents, each bringing their unique stories and desires. Jenna discovered she wasn't alone in her longing for change. In fact, she found kindred spirits in the process. They envisioned everything from natural play spaces for children to community gardens where families could learn and grow together. It was a whirlwind of energy, creativity, and excitement that Jenna had never anticipated. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Jenna sat in her living room, staring at the blueprints for the park spread across her coffee table. Her heart raced as she reflected on everything they had achieved in such a short time. She heard her phone buzz, and when she picked it up, it was a message from the mayor. Excited for the groundbreaking tomorrow, the flood of warmth surged through her. Tomorrow was the big day, the official announcement of the park's construction. A spark of nervousness appeared, but it quickly vanished. They had done this together. As Jenna arrived at the town square the next day, it felt as if the sun had transformed the landscape, bathing everything in warmth and light. The energy was palpable, and townspeople gathered around, buzzing with anticipation. For a moment, young kids ran around playing games, their laughter ringing like joyous bells. As Jenna scanned the crowd, she spotted the mayor chatting with families, genuinely engaged in conversation. He looked different, less like a distant official and more like a friend, a neighbor she could trust. Finally, the moment arrived. The mayor climbed onto the stage, his demeanor confident and inviting. "Today we're not just breaking ground," he said, pausing for effect. "We're building dreams." Jenna stood at the front, filled with pride as he pointed out individuals in the crowd, people who had contributed ideas, energy, and vision. And then he called her name. "Jenna, thank you for your passion and your vision." Her cheeks flushed with warmth as the applause rang through the air. Her foot tapped to the rhythm of happiness, and she smiled, heart full. As they all gathered around to break ground, Jenna held the ceremonial shovel tightly, glancing at the mayor beside her. They shared a knowing look, the handshake from weeks ago connecting them. That simple moment had bound them together in a mission far greater than either could have imagined. With a swift motion, they thrust the shovels into the earth, tossing soil high into the air, laughter and cheers mingling. The joy was intoxicating. Layer upon layer of dreams began to take root. When the dust settled, Jenna stood tall, watching families celebrate, seeing kids plan out their new playground in vivid colors across their imaginations. As the festivities continued, she realized something profound. She had rolled her eyes before, but now she had stepped onto a path paved with possibilities. She had transformed her skepticism into something powerful, not just for herself, but for a whole community. The journey wasn't just about parks or plans, it was about connection, courage, and community. Jenna had stepped up, and with every shovel of dirt, every exchanged laugh, every shake of the hand, she had forged a new story for Maplewood, one filled with hope, hard work, and the unyielding strength of togetherness. And as she looked out over the crowd, a smile spread across her face. She had gone from the girl who rolled her eyes to the woman who dared to believe in a brighter future for everyone. Because sometimes all it takes is one moment, one gesture to change everything. The clamor of the crowd suddenly hushed, as if the air itself held its breath. Jenna stood at the edge of the town square, arms crossed, watching with a mix of disbelief and disdain. The mayor had just arrived, striding toward the stage with his usual grandiosity, all smiles and smooth words. She rolled her eyes, almost in sync with the murmur of skepticism that rippled through the gathering. "Another show," she muttered under her breath. This was her third town hall meeting in a month, and each felt like the one before, a carousel of empty promises and half-hearted applause. The theme tonight, the new community park, a project that seemed to stay forever on the drawing board. Her friend Sarah asked, nudging her gently. "It's just," Jenna paused, searching for the right words, "I feel like we're stuck on a loop." Sarah sighed, her eyes still glued to the stage. "At least give him a chance." But Jenna wasn't interested in being surprised. She had her reasons. Just last spring, they'd been promised renovations to the town library. Months later, the building still resembled a relic from another time, walls peeling, books barely kept on the shelves. As the mayor stepped to the microphone, adjusting it with a confident grin, Jenna's skepticism only deepened. He spoke with passion about green spaces and community gatherings, and Jenna felt tension coil in her chest. She was drawn in against her will, captivated but unwilling to fully embrace the words. "In this park we will cultivate connections," he said, gesturing dramatically. The crowd cheered. Jenna glanced around, noting the hopeful expressions on the faces of her neighbors. But behind their excitement, she sensed a current of doubt, a silent understanding that they'd all heard these promises before. The little girl tugged at her mother's sleeve, her big eyes wide with hope. The mother smiled but didn't respond, her eyes betraying an uncertainty Jenna recognized all too well. This was the moment Jenna had expected. A scripted performance designed to charm and manipulate. She couldn't help but feel anger bubble beneath her surface. Was this what they were all reduced to? A backdrop for promises designed to fade? The crowd surged forward, eager to take him up on that offer. Jenna remained rooted, refusing to join the throng. She felt like a spectator, arms crossed tighter now as she tried to steel herself against the wave of enthusiasm. The mayor was shaking hands, laughing and nodding, surrounded by a flock of supporters. It was then that a boy, maybe 6 years old, stepped up to the mayor. He was clutching a crumpled piece of paper. Jenna watched, fascinated, as the boy nervously approached. "Mister," the paper trembled in his hands. The mayor encouraged, squatting down to meet the boy's gaze. With trembling hands, the boy unfolded the paper, revealing a colorful drawing of swings, slides, and lots of happy faces. The crowd oohed and ahed, and Jenna felt something shift within her. The boy's innocent belief seemed to ignite a flicker of hope that she had tried desperately to quench. The mayor exclaimed, eyes shining bright. He declared, grinning from ear to ear. The crowd laughed and clapped, and Jenna couldn't help but feel her heart thaw, even if just a little. The mayor asked, leaning closer to the boy, and Jenna was shocked when she saw tears shining in the boy's eyes. He shouted, excitement pouring out of him. Jenna felt a tug at her spirit. It was pure, unfiltered joy on display. For the first time that night, she found herself wishing that maybe this time, the promises might actually mean something. Suddenly, the mayor glanced over at Jenna, the corners of his mouth lifting into a knowing smile. He called out, caught off guard. She blinked. Absolutely. Her hesitation lingered like a thick fog. The crowd turned toward her, anticipation radiating from their faces. For a moment, Jenna felt the weight of their shared hopes, dreams, and inspirations, but she quickly shook it off. "I'm not sure," she replied, feeling small. The mayor didn't flinch. His gaze remained steady. "I understand skepticism, truly, but what if we work together to make this different? This isn't just about me, it's about all of us. You have a voice, Jenna." Even as the words left his mouth, Jenna felt a flicker of something inside her, a tiny seed of belief she had buried deeply. "Okay," she said, surprising even herself, "but you have to promise that we'll get results." The mayor nodded, sincerity etched into his features. And then, like a magical unfolding, something shifted in Jenna. She thought of how easy it was to dwell in negativity, to fold her arms and dismiss what could be. That one shake of the hand could flick the switch of hope if only she was willing to let it. "You guys aren't just dreaming, you're becoming dreamers, and dreamers make things happen," he said, looking into the crowd with rising passion. The crowd erupted in applause, and in that moment of connection, everything changed for Jenna. She was no longer just a disgruntled observer. She felt like a participant, someone who could create and construct that hope alongside everyone else. Days turned into weeks, and Jenna found herself drawn deeper into community's plans. She discovered that all those town hall meetings weren't just empty words, but discussions about real improvements. The mayor became more than just a name. He became a partner in the journey they were all embarking on together. During those gatherings, Jenna learned from a diverse group of people, artists, teachers, parents. Everyone brought something different to the table. They brainstormed ideas, drew designs, and rallied enthusiasm, building a vision that felt real for the first time. "I want a space for art classes," one woman suggested, her voice bubbling with excitement. Interjected another, her brow furrowed in determination. Jenna felt a sense of camaraderie blossom in those meetings, a sense of purpose she had been missing. Her critical eye transformed into something much more enjoyable, creative inquiry. She was empowered, and it felt fantastic. One day, while foraging through the early designs for the park, a message popped up on her phone. It was from the mayor. "We should meet." Jenna's heart raced. It was different when an ordinary resident became a real voice at the table. After they exchanged words via text, they arranged to meet at a local coffee shop. When the day arrived, she felt a burst of nerves, but they quickly vanished as she entered the quaint cafe filled with the warm smell of brewed coffee. The mayor was already there, his head bent down, scanning through sketches and papers spread across the table. He looked up, a wide smile brightening his face. She slid into the seat across from him, eager to dive in. They spent the next hour discussing plans, hopes, and the community's desires. Jenna noticed firsthand how much the mayor valued their input, how each suggestion made it onto the page. Let's talk art installations next, she proposed, her enthusiasm bubbling forth unfiltered. Excellent idea, he replied, jotting it down. And what about a performance space? She agreed wholeheartedly. Conversation felt like more than just dialogue. It felt like they were genuinely weaving a tapestry of change together, thread by thread. As their meeting wrapped up, Jenna felt a sense of accomplishment blooming within her. She glanced outside the window, watching the world pass by. The trees were just beginning to blossom. Spring was making its triumphant return. Thank you for your thoughts today, Jenna, the mayor said, rising to leave. Jenna felt a rush of pride swell in her chest. Thank you for listening. Reached out for her hand and she took it, feeling that familiar warmth ripple between them. This handshake was different, filled with a growing trust and purpose forged through collaboration, determination, and belief. And then it hit her. She had gone from rolling her eyes to shaking hands, aligning herself with a future that felt brighter than ever. The belief she had once tried to bury was now blossoming, intertwined with the heartbeat of the town. As spring turned into summer, the park began to take shape. The once barren lot transformed into a vibrant tapestry of colors and laughter. Jenna could hardly believe her eyes. Families gathered, kids played, and laughter floated through the air like magic. And when the park opened, residents flooded through the gates, their faces aglow with joy. When the mayor stood on the stage for the opening ceremony, Jenna felt a swell of happiness burst within her. This is not just my dream, this is our dream, he declared, and she realized how true those words were. Jenna found herself standing in the crowd, a newly minted advocate. She no longer stood at the sidelines, she was fully engaged. As she looked around at the families enjoying their new park, she thought back to that moment when she had rolled her eyes. Sometimes she realized all it takes is a small shift, a single moment to ignite a spark that could change everything. In her heart, she felt gratitude for that day, that boy with the drawing, and the mayor who dared to shake her hand. They had collectively made a beautiful change, and Jenna couldn't wait to see where their journey would take them next. The sound of clapping echoed through the town square as Maggie stood awkwardly at the back, arms crossed, her eyes rolling. Another town meeting, another round of self-congratulatory speeches, and here was the mayor up on that stage like he was about to save the world. She couldn't help but let out a silent scoff as he adjusted the microphone, smiling as if he hadn't been a part of the ongoing problems in Maplewood. What a show, she whispered to her friend Emma beside her, who was eagerly leaning forward. Let's be real, Emma replied, at least give him a chance, but Maggie wasn't convinced. The last 3 years had been riddled with unfulfilled promises, a new community park, revitalized public spaces, the restoration of the historic train station. All words, no action. Each time she raised her hopes, they came crashing down. It felt like a relentless cycle of disappointment. Tonight's topic was particularly close to her heart, the planned redevelopment of Maplewood Park, which had fallen into disrepair. She could remember the joy of running through its fields as a child, the laughter of families at picnic tables, the way the sun set behind the swing's golden moments that now felt far away, almost magical. Without proper care, that magic risked fading forever. As the mayor began to speak, she found it hard to focus on his words. He had the voice of a practiced politician, modulating his tone to evoke emotion. He painted a picture of thriving greenery, happy families, and exciting events. It was almost dreamy too dreamy. Each phrase felt like a sugary coating over a bitter truth. And we will build a playground that reflects the needs of our community, he declared with a grand gesture, looking out into the crowd as if he were summoning the spirits of progress. His brown hair glimmered under the stage lights and his white teeth shone like a polished facade. Maggie couldn't help but shake her head. He says that every time, she whispered to Emma, just barely containing her frustration. Emma nudged her gently, how about you listen? But Maggie was too far into her thoughts, and before she knew it, the mayor was calling for questions. The crowd surged forward, eager to engage. She watched as her neighbors flocked to the stage, their expressions filled with excitement and hope. Tendrils of envy coiled in her chest. Why couldn't she feel that way? Then something astonishing happened. An elderly woman in a bright red coat shuffled up to the microphone. The crowd hushed, anticipation dancing in the air. Mr. Mayor, many of us have been waiting for this park for years, she began, her voice wavering with emotion. Maggie felt a flicker of admiration for the woman's courage. Voice trembling, the woman continued. My grandson loves this park, but right now it's a mess. The mayor smiled, a practiced expression of empathy washing over his face. Maggie felt her heart sink. Promises, promises, promises. She thought of all the summer afternoons spent there, replaced now by crumbling benches, overgrown weeds, and half-broken swings. How could he expect anyone to believe him? He faced the crowd, his eyes glinting with sincerity. Suddenly, a little boy no more than 8 stepped forward. With courage beyond his years, he approached the microphone. He asked, wide-eyed and earnest. The crowd laughed gently, loving the boy's innocence, and even Maggie couldn't help but smile. The mayor replied, kneeling to meet the boy's gaze. I want to hear your ideas about the swings. The boy chirped, eyes sparkling with imagination. The mayor exclaimed, turning the boy's simple idea into a grand vision right there in front of everyone. The boy's face lit up, and the approval from the crowd radiated a warmth that almost melted the frost of Maggie's skepticism. Almost. Emma nudged Maggie again, her voice filled with excitement. Believing isn't enough, Maggie muttered, already feeling that familiar heaviness settle back in. What happens when the high swings don't get built? Just then, the mayor's gaze swept across the crowd and landed on Maggie. It was a fleeting glance, but she felt a strange notion settle in the pit of her stomach. It was as if he saw her cynical frown and the deep-rooted mistrust buried behind it. He called out, pointing right at her. The air thickened as all eyes turned her way. Maggie felt a rush of heat flood her cheeks. She was caught like a deer in headlights. The last thing she wanted was to speak in front of everyone. She hated being center stage. I think we need more than just swings and slides, Maggie stammered. We need a space that feels inclusive. The mayor nodded. That's a great point, and you're right, inclusivity is key. Maggie felt a shift, a spark igniting within her. It was a conversation, real and honest. Responding to his question without pretense felt oddly empowering. The mayor replied, grinning, "That's what we need." Maggie's heart raced. For a moment she felt a flicker of hope, a distant echo that maybe, just maybe, something would change. But somewhere deep inside, her skepticism pulled her back. After the meeting, she stood off to the side, watching as the mayor shook hands with people, listening carefully, smiling at each one of them. That charisma had always felt superficial to her, but tonight it lacked the insincerity she had associated with him. As people approached, she caught snippets of conversations, community members voicing their hopes, sharing ideas, and challenging him to make real change. She felt an odd mix of envy and admiration. Could it be that the mayor was genuinely engaged this time? When the crowd started to thin, she took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Mr. Mayor," she called out, her voice steadying. He turned to her, eyebrows raised with interest. Maggie found herself standing directly in front of him, their eyes locking. "Look, I want to believe that this is different." "I appreciate your honesty, Maggie," he replied, sincerity written all over his face. "It's easy to be skeptical after so many broken promises. Believe me, I understand." She nodded, feeling a weight lift slightly. He extended his hand. Maggie hesitated for a moment, a mixture of disbelief and curiosity swirling in her mind. She had always rolled her eyes at the notion of trust, yet here it was being offered to her. Would it be foolish to take it? After a beat of hesitation, she finally placed her palm in his. The handshake felt powerful, a connection that resonated deeper than either of them probably realized. "I'll do my part to make sure your voices are heard, and I hope you will continue to hold me accountable," he said firmly. Suddenly, something lined and earnest unfurled within her. This was a turning point not just for the park, but for how she viewed the entire town and maybe even herself. Weeks rolled into months, and as summer spread across Maplewood, Maggie found herself increasingly involved. Community meetings flourished. Slowly, word began to spread that this time things were different. People felt the energy shift. They painted signs, organized cleanup days, and met in corners of the park, brainstorming ideas that would reflect their hopes. With the mayor's guidance, it felt collaborative, a tapestry woven from every voice in the community. Maggie reveled in the process. Watching kids plant flowers in the garden, designing walking paths, and connecting with people she'd known for years, but never really talked to, brought her a sense of fulfillment she hadn't expected. One Saturday evening, they had a gathering at the park, a celebration of community spirit. Families filled the area, laughter bouncing off the trees as kids played games and neighbors mingled with each other. Maggie spotted the mayor across the crowd, chatting animatedly with a group of children. He looked different now, too, more like a man invested in the town, not just a political figure. He waved at Maggie and she smiled back, the connection between them deepening as she noticed his genuine care for the community. The town felt alive. The park was transforming, but so was Maggie. No longer just a skeptic, she was an active participant. That evening, as the sun set, casting a warm glow over the gathering, the mayor approached her. "You've done amazing work, Maggie." "It's not just me," she responded, the weight of the collective effort warming her heart. "It's everyone." He smiled, but behind his eyes she saw something more. "That's because you all dared to believe you could make a difference." And in that moment, Maggie understood. The mayor had used his initial connection with her to ignite something larger. Together, they had created a community of dreamers, a group of people who refused to let their hopes dwindle. As the first insistent notes of music caught the wind, Maggie's heart swelled. She realized that she had come full circle, that she had transformed from someone who rolled her eyes at empty promises to someone who believed in the potential of her hometown. At that moment, standing in the park surrounded by laughter, joy, and the smell of freshly mown grass, she felt a sense of belonging she had longed for. The park wasn't just a project, it was a testament to hope, cooperation, and the power of community spirit. She watched families dance and children play, and as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, she took a moment to appreciate the journey. The mayor had indeed changed the narrative, but so had she. By choosing to step forward to shake hands and to believe when it was the hardest, she had ignited a spark that transformed her life, the community, and the future of Maplewood itself. And in the end, she realized it was never just about swings and slides. It was about the people, all of them taking a chance on each other, uniting to create a joyful place for generations to come. The journey had begun with a single moment of skepticism, but it had ended with an embrace of possibility, and it was worth every heartbeat along the way. The sound of clinking glasses and murmurs filled the intimate cafe, lights twinkling like stars above. Maggie sat in a small corner booth, her coffee going cold in front of her. She watched as people filtered in, a mix of familiar faces and new ones. Tonight was a gathering of community leaders, local artists, and a few politicians. The mayor, however, was rumored to be central to this meeting, and that only made her eyes roll. "Ah," she muttered under her breath when she spotted him striding through the door, confidence radiating from every step he took. "Come on, Maggie," her friend Sarah said, elbowing her gently. "Don't be such a skeptic." Maggie shook her head vigorously. "I've already given him too many chances. Remember last summer?" Sarah sighed, exasperation evident in her voice. "I know, but maybe he's learned." As the mayor approached, flashing his signature broad smile, Maggie felt her stomach twist. His aura commanded attention, charismatic, charming, yet somehow entirely predictable. Maggie didn't trust people like him, politicians who could sell dreams but never delivered. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, voice resonating through the cafe. Maggie's heart sank. Another talk about grand visions and futures that would never materialize. She glanced out the window, the evening darkening, and in her mind, all she could see were the shadows cast by unmet expectations. He said, inviting questions and comments, and as he pointed to a man in the front, he leaned into it with that same over-the-top enthusiasm. Maggie exhaled, a mix of irritation and curiosity simmering inside her. She didn't want to participate, didn't want to play this game of hope versus reality. But as she sat there, feeling more detached, she noticed a flicker of something, a small crack in her cynicism. What if just this once, the talk was more than hot air? "Mr. Mayor," called out an elderly woman from across the room, her voice trembling but clear. "Can you really assure us that the plans for fixing Maple Park will go forward this time?" The mayor looked genuinely focused, nodding as he adjusted his glasses. "Absolutely, I want to make it clear that our community's needs come first." Maggie felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Did he truly mean that, or was it just another promise, another elaborate detail in the play he was putting on for the audience? As the evening continued, Maggie listened as the mayor engaged with community members, teasing out ideas, embracing input. Every time he nodded thoughtfully or emphasized that he was listening, she felt that flicker dulling slightly. Different. Then the unthinkable happened. As he opened the floor for more questions, he paused and looked around the cafe, his gaze landing on her. Maggie, her breath caught for a moment. Everyone turned to look at her, and Maggie felt her cheeks flush. She started, her voice momentarily faltering. "I think we need more than just a few swings and slides." A glimmer of surprise flickered across his face, and Maggie noticed how the room leaned in, captivated by the sincerity in her words. He exclaimed, his tone enthusiastic, "That's what we need." For a split second, Maggie felt something shift inside her. A tiny spark of hope ignited, growing rapidly but dangerously. Had she seen a glimpse of real change? After the meeting, the mayor moved through the crowd, shaking hands, speaking earnestly with each person he encountered. When he approached Maggie, she felt a rush of uncertainty. "Thank you for your input earlier," he said, an earnestness in his eyes that made it hard for her to dismiss him. "Sure," she replied, nervously tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. He extended his hand. "Then let's work together." Maggie hesitated. She had rolled her eyes at so many promises, always skeptical. But here he was, extending trust in her, a person from the community. Almost as if sensing her hesitation, he smiled encouragingly. With a deep breath, she took his hand. The very moment their palms connected, something changed within her. It was as if warmth pulsed from his grasp straight to her heart. She didn't know why it felt significant, but it did. As the crowd filtered out, Maggie found it hard to shake off that encounter. Over the next few days, images of the park danced in her mind. She imagined what it could look like, filled with laughter and life. For the first time in a long while, she started sketching ideas. Community gardens, art installations, a small performance space. One evening, while working on her sketches, she saw a notification on her phone, an invitation from the mayor's office to a community forum about the park. Without thinking too much, she RSVP'd. At the forum, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Maggie arrived a bit late, worming her way through the already formed crowd. To her surprise, she felt a surge of adrenaline when she saw the mayor up front, engaging with residents, facilitating discussion with genuine energy. "Thank you all for coming. Tonight we're here to make this vision a reality together," he said, his voice resonating with conviction. Maggie listened intently, encouraged by the number of people speaking up and sharing what they wanted. When a woman suggested adding a small amphitheater for performances, Maggie nodded along. Then came a moment that took the air out of the room. A local teen stood up, addressing the crowd. "I want to see a skate park." The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, and the mayor nodded with enthusiasm. "That's an amazing idea. Let's make sure we include the voices of our teens in this plan." Maggie glanced around, heart swelling. She had never seen the town come alive like this. True energy flowed between people. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a movement. And then they turned to her again, the mayor catching her glance, a knowing smile forming on his lips. She was taken aback, he encouraged. Swallowing hard, Maggie stepped forward. I think we need to focus on inclusivity. The words flowed more easily now, powered by the momentum surrounding her. The mayor responded, lighting up at her enthusiasm. Why don't we organize groups to brainstorm specific projects? Maggie felt a warmth in her chest. She was in the thick of it now, no longer an observer. As the discussions wound down, the mayor thanked everyone for their participation and reiterated his commitment to keeping the momentum going. Each of you is essential to this project. After the forum, when the crowd began to disperse, the mayor found Maggie again amidst the chatter. You did great today, he said, his voice sincere. Thanks, she replied, a bit shy but pleased. I just think if we aren't all involved, it won't work. He nodded, clearly appreciating her words. Exactly. As Maggie left the forum, tears unexpectedly stung her eyes. This was more than a dream, more than an idea. It felt real, tangible, and she was part of something so much larger than herself. Over the next few weeks, Maggie found herself deeply engaged. They organized cleanup days in the park, came together to paint murals, and gathered ideas for installations. Each moment felt electric with possibility, and she reveled in it. No longer merely rolling her eyes at political shenanigans, she actively fought for what mattered. Maybe, she thought, just maybe they could get through this together. One hot afternoon, while painting a mural with some teens, Maggie felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They were working together, creating something special. As they painted, she heard shouts coming from the other side of the park. Curious, she made her way over to the commotion, where she found the mayor standing among a group of children, smiling from ear to ear as they handed him drawings of their dream parks. One little girl asked, her voice bright. The mayor responded, kneeling down to her level. Your voices are being heard. Maggie watched in awe, her heart soaring. It was amazing to see someone truly engaging with the future generation, treating kids' dreams with the care they deserved. For the first time, she realized it wasn't just about the park. It was about restoring faith, about rekindling the magic of community. She felt proud that she was part of this journey. As time passed, more people began to show up, emboldened by hope and enthusiasm. They organized community events, held open forums, and engaged creatively with their visions. The park began to take shape, but even more importantly, the community transformed. That evening, as dusk settled over Maplewood, Maggie sat on the steps of the park, allowing herself to simply soak it all in. The sound of laughter floated through the air, and she caught glimpses of people coming together in ways she had never imagined. Then she spotted the mayor walking toward her, hands in his pockets with a relaxed grin on his face. He said, sliding onto the steps beside her. She asked, a small smile breaking across her lips. Of course, you've been instrumental in everything. Maggie felt a rush of gratitude wash over her. I'm just glad we're all finally listening to each other. You've done more than listen, you've helped guide the conversation, he replied. She felt her cheeks flush. Thank you, but it really isn't just me. Look around, everyone is part of this. The mayor nodded, his expression serious. Exactly. And it's a testament to the power of collaboration. I guess it just took a little nudge, she said lightly, remembering where she had started rolling her eyes and resisting. And in that moment, beneath the stars beginning to twinkle, Maggie realized that her perspective had shifted. She hadn't just shaken the mayor's hand, she had shaken off her doubts, insecurities, and fears. She had stepped fully into the fabric of her community and woven threads of connection. As the night deepened and laughter echoed around them, she found herself thinking back to that very first meeting. She had rolled her eyes at the idea of change, but now she could feel it blooming all around her, a kaleidoscope of hopes and dreams rising in the night air. And that, she knew, was more than she could have ever dreamed possible. It was just the beginning of a park, a community, and the powerful change that coursed through every heart gathered together, all entwined by the magic of belief and connection. The park was their shared space, but this journey, it was her new beginning, one she was proud to own. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm orange glow over the town square, where an uneasy hum of anticipation filled the air. Jenna stood at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed, her thoughts swirling with skepticism. The mayor was about to address the residents, pitching another set of grand ideas. She felt a familiar tightness in her chest, and a bitter sigh escaped her lips. Here we go again, she muttered under her breath. Her friend Sarah stood beside her, bouncing slightly on her heels, brimming with excitement. Come on, Jenna, give him a chance. Jenna rolled her eyes, glancing at the podium where the mayor stood fidgeting with his notes. To her, he looked like a magician about to pull out his most unreliable trick, all flair and no substance. Last summer, he had promised urgent repairs for Maple Park, but all that had come was the same old disappointment, broken swings, crumbling paths, and a neglected fountain. They'd watched as weeds took over, suffocating the space where families once gathered, so she had every right to be cynical. As he began his speech, Jenna shuffled her weight from one foot to the other, internally critiquing his gestures and inflections. he declared, his voice booming across the square. Each enthusiastic word felt like a drum roll to her, a sound that signaled more frustration. Some in the crowd cheered enthusiastically, their faces lit with hope. Jenna felt like an outsider, a rainy cloud hovering over the sunlit sky. She glanced around, noting the sparkle in the eyes of those who truly believed in him. It made her heart ache in a way she couldn't quite pinpoint. He continued, animatedly sweeping his arms to encompass the crowd. "Yeah, if it ever gets built," Jenna whispered, sardonic, earning a stern glare from Sarah. Jenna, but as the mayor spoke, Jenna couldn't shake her doubts. Words floated into the air and disappeared like smoke. She was tired of words. They had become routine, the same old promises from the same man. They were the "I'll get to it" of her local government, swirling in her mind, combining into a haze of frustration. Finally, he paused, scanning the crowd as if inviting questions, a brave move, considering the energy that bubbled just beneath the surface. A woman from the back shouted, her voice cutting through the chatter. "When can we expect real changes?" The mayor's smile faltered slightly. "I understand your frustration, but I assure you this time we'll see action." Murmurs of skepticism rippled through the audience, and Jenna felt a flicker of sympathy for the mayor. He stood there, eyes darting between the crowd, so different from his earlier bravado. Maybe he was feeling the weight of their expectations. Mister, a little boy who couldn't have been more than 6, suddenly piped up. Jenna's heart softened just a little. She watched as the boy's wide eyes brimmed with innocence, hope spilling out onto the ground beneath him. The mayor replied, a burst of enthusiasm flooding back into his voice. "Absolutely, there will be swings and slides." Jenna felt her defenses lowering slightly, but she quickly rationalized how many times had she heard this charade before. The mayor looked around, gauging the reactions. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be here after the meeting to answer more questions. Let's talk about what you want to see." As he spoke, she felt the atmosphere change. People craned their necks to catch his eye, eager to approach him to tell him their ideas. For a moment, the air buzzed with possibility. But then, as the crowd surged forward, Jenna stepped back. She was not ready to put herself out there, not ready to believe again. She exchanged unsure glances with Sarah, whose eager anticipation was palpable. Sarah urged, nudging her gently. Jenna shot back, "It's just going to be another round of promises." But despite her protest, her heart raced with a mix of dread and desire. What if she was wrong? What if this time was different? Taking a deep breath, Jenna found herself drawn toward the group gathering around the mayor. With every step, she felt a whirlpool of emotions. Anxiety thrummed in her chest, but mingled with a hint of hope she hadn't expected. When she reached the front, the mayor was shaking hands and taking notes. His face lit up when he caught her eye. "Jenna, I remember your questions from the last meeting." His enthusiasm was contagious, and for a split second she felt herself hesitate. But the words caught in her throat. What could she say that would matter? "Wait," shouted another woman from the crowd. "We need proper seating in a central gathering area." Jenna felt her heart quicken again, joining the movement. "I second that." The mayor nodded furiously, a grin spreading across his face. "Excellent point, Jenna." For a moment, all she could hear was the pounding of her heart against her ribs. She suggested, feeling emboldened, "A place for people to grow vegetables and learn together." The crowd murmured in approval, and the mayor's eyes glinted with excitement. Yes, a community garden would be fantastic. Every ounce of doubt began to melt away. As she saw the mayor take notes, confidence blossomed within her. Maybe, just maybe, this was a partnership in action. People were listening to her. She was part of this dynamic. As the meeting drew to a close, the mayor thanked everyone for their input, promising to take their ideas seriously. "Let's keep the conversations going." With a burst of adrenaline, Jenna decided to linger a little longer. She watched fellow residents eagerly approach the mayor, excitement bubbling over. This was a new kind of energy, one she hadn't felt in a long time. Suddenly, the mayor turned to her again, extending his hand. "Thank you, Jenna," he said. "Your ideas matter. Let's keep this momentum going." The moment their hands met sent an electric jolt through her. She felt a sense of trust, a flicker of faith emerging amidst her doubts. She had rolled her eyes so many times before, but now something in her shifted. "Thank you for listening," she replied, her voice steady. As she walked away, the weight in her chest felt lighter. She had spoken up, she had shaken his hand and embraced the possibility of change. There was something empowering in that moment, a seed of hope planted deep. Over the next few weeks, Jenna became more involved. She attended planning meetings, joined cleanup efforts at Maple Park, and even helped organize volunteer days. The park transformed from a neglected expanse to a vibrant space filled with laughter and community spirit. People rallied. They painted murals, planted flowers, and revitalized long-lost picnic spots. Jenna discovered something stirring deep within herself, the fiery passion of wanting to build, to create, to belong. One sunny Saturday, as she stood in the park surrounded by cheerful chatter and excited children, she found herself lost in the joy bubbling around her. The mayor arrived, hands clasped behind his back, beaming at the transformation. He exclaimed, eyes sparkling, "You all have done this." Jenna joined in the laughter, feeling alive. When the mayor turned to her, she remembered that initial meeting and the doubts that had clouded her vision. "This is incredible," she said, her heart swelling with pride. "We really did it," he nodded, sincerity radiating from his gaze. "You're right, Jenna." Their hands shook once more, but this time it wasn't just a formal gesture. It was a bond forged in enthusiasm and collaboration. As the weeks went by, Jenna found herself becoming a staunch advocate for the park, rallying others to join the cause. Gatherings became more frequent, and each one echoed with laughter. She had grown into a leader, a voice for change, and it felt exhilarating. But even as joy wrapped around her, Jenna still wrestled with remnants of doubt. What if this was just a phase? What if the mayor fell back into his old habits? Each night she would lay awake, questioning the sustainability of this newfound spirit. Then one fateful evening, as she stood at the park during a community movie night, she noticed the mayor interacting with kids and families, listening intently. It was mesmerizing to see him engrossed, genuinely invested. When he found her, he said, "Jenna, look at everyone." She smiled, her heart swelling with pride. It really is, people care. A breath of warmth radiated within her, and she caught a glimpse of herself in that moment, a reflection of a woman who had clung tightly to skepticism but had broken free. Yet doubts loomed like storm clouds once more. She had grown attached to this process, to the people around her and the potential they had unearthed. "Mr. Mayor," she said cautiously, her voice firm, "I have to ask, when will the park really be finished?" There was a moment of silence, a pause where hopes hung in the air. The mayor smiled, but it wasn't the confident grin she had come to expect. Instead, it was tempered with sincerity. "I can't give you an exact date, Jenna, but I promise you we are moving towards that." In that moment, Jenna felt torn, the uncertainty of timelines, the fear that the past could creep back and gnawed at her heart. "I just want this to be real," she said softly. "It will be," he assured her. "Real change isn't instantaneous, it's a process, and we're on this journey together." As the community movie night began with laughter filling the air, Jenna felt the doubts fading into the background. Change was a journey, not a destination, and she had chosen to walk the path alongside everyone else. With every child's laughter and every smile exchanged, she could see that their fight had not been in vain. In affirming their commitment, Jenna realized she'd transformed from a cynical observer to an active participant, aligning herself with a vision that encompassed unity. Seasons shifted, and as the weather turned cooler, the park blossomed. Families came together for picnics, friends lounged on benches, and laughter spiraled up to the sky. Everyone who had once felt invisible or ignored now saw themselves reflected in the beauty of their community space. Jenna felt a deep satisfaction wash over her as she watched the vibrancy all around her. One chilly afternoon, standing at the park with Sarah, Jenna smiled, watching the sunshine even through the falling leaves. She mused. Sarah beamed at her. "I knew you'd come around." Jenna chuckled. "I guess I just needed a little push." As they walked, Jenna glanced back at the park, reflecting on how much had changed. For years, she had rolled her eyes at broken promises and hollow words, but now she felt connected not just to the mayor, but to her community, a tapestry woven by shared dreams. With the park bathed in the golden hues of sunset and children playing joyfully, Jenna felt a sense of destiny unfolding before her. She had found her voice, embraced change and autonomy, and discovered the power of community. In that moment, Jenna realized she had been part of something remarkable, a transformation that began with an eye roll and forged through every handshake that sealed promises. That shift within her from skepticism to belief painted a future she would continue to nurture. And it didn't matter if the park's completion was days or weeks away, it was the journey itself that connected them all. There would be ups and downs, but with each step forward together, they were not just building a park. They were laying the foundation for a vibrant community, ready to flourish in the embrace of unyielding hope. The bell tower chimed the hour, its echo ricocheting through the town square. Jenna stood near the fountain, arms crossed tightly, her expression one of deep skepticism. The mayor had just arrived, and the crowd erupted with applause, eager and hopeful, but Jenna felt a wave of irritation wash over her. "Here we go again," she whispered to her friend Emma, rolling her eyes dramatically. "Come on, Jenna," Emma replied, nudging her playfully. Jenna shot back, her voice dripping with cynicism. "He's given us nothing but promises." The mayor stepped up to the podium, radiating charm, a wide grin plastered across his face. The sunlight caught the glint of his polished shoes as he gestured grandly with his hands, painting a picture of the community's bright future. But he was just another guy in a suit, Jenna thought, someone who could talk a good game but rarely followed through. The mayor boomed, his voice seeming to rise above the murmurs of the crowd. Jenna shifted uncomfortably, her arms tightening across her chest as if she could physically block out the words. The town had heard enough of this song and dance. The crowd roared with applause, and Jenna let out a soft groan, shaking her head. She muttered under her breath, more to herself than to Emma. She felt her heart tighten, a weight of disappointments pressing against her. The community center had been promised for years, but remained a dream hanging heavy like a storm cloud overhead. Jenna's mind drifted back to the summer she spent countless afternoons at Maple Park. Children laughing, families enjoying picnics, friends gathered on warm evenings under the stars. But now, the park was in shambles, full of weeds, broken swings, and rusting equipment. Each visit felt like a reminder of what the town had lost, of what they could achieve but never did. Don't roll your eyes, Emma urged, tilting her head. But hearing the mayor's speech felt like being stuck in a loop, cycle of promises that never bore fruit. It was palpable, the skepticism threading through the crowd, even the excitement was tinged with doubt. The mayor continued, flashing his trademark smile. I'm committed to ensuring that you all have a voice in this process. A fleeting flicker of hope stirred within Jenna, quickly subdued by her nagging skepticism. She clung to that doubt, refusing to let it go. She knew that hope could sometimes feel like a trap, a deceptive promise. Then the mayor's gaze swept over the crowd, and to Jenna's surprise, it landed squarely on her. Jenna, how about you? Her breath caught. There was a mix of dread and curiosity in her uneasily churning stomach. She hadn't expected to be singled out like this. He urged, waving her toward the podium. Emma whispered, her excitement palpable. With her heart pounding, Jenna stepped forward. The crowd parted and she felt every eye on her. Deep breaths. This was her moment to speak. But as she stepped up to the microphone, a familiar cocktail of anxiety mixed inside her. She started, her voice shaking slightly. I think we really need to focus on what this community lacks. The audience began nodding and Jenna felt a rush of adrenaline. Maybe, just maybe, she could sway some hearts with genuine suggestions. We need areas for kids, but also spaces for teens and seniors. The mayor was nodding along, absorbing her words, and suddenly her skepticism began to wane. Exactly, real connection was happening here. She wasn't just talking to the void of empty promises, she was engaging in dialogue. When she finished, the crowd erupted into applause, and for the first time, Jenna felt a warmth pulsing through her. Not just the applause, but the realization she had inspired others. The mayor grinned at her. Great points, Jenna. We're going to implement those ideas. As she returned to her place in the crowd, Jenna's heart raced. She had taken a step forward, but also taken a chance on the mayor. Maybe he could surprise her. After the meeting, she lingered at the edge of the crowd, watching him engage with others, shaking hands and listening to their concerns. There was something different about him. Instead of rehearsed lines, he seemed sincere, eager to build bridges with everyone there. Suddenly, she found herself caught in his gaze again as he approached. Hey there, great input earlier, he said, extending his hand. That handshake sent a jolt through her, warm, genuine, and filled with potential. Jenna couldn't help but smile. Thank you. Together we will, he promised, his eyes locking onto hers. And just like that, her skepticism began to wane. Days turned into weeks, and Jenna found herself becoming more involved. She joined planning meetings, met with community members, and sat down for brainstorming sessions. Each time she walked into the room, she felt a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. This was new. The community was shifting. The discussions were filled with vibrant ideas, how to create murals, community gardens, spaces for art and music. There was real momentum. Jenna started to see a light at the end of the tunnel. That initial eye roll transformed into hope, a flickering flame that grew brighter with each shared voice. But still, doubts lingered in the back of her mind. Would they all follow through? Each time the mayor stopped by their meetings, she felt a swell of trust, yet that nagging fear lived within her. What if this was just another fleeting moment? One crisp Saturday morning, the community gathered for a park cleanup event. It was a beautiful day, sun shining, the scent of freshly cut grass in the air. Children raced around, grabbing trash bags and excitedly racing to claim a patch of the park as their own. As she swept aside fallen leaves and debris, Jenna spotted the mayor mingling with families. He was laughing with kids, encouraging them to get involved, and she felt warmth swell within her. In that moment, she realized how crucial this was, not just for their town, but for everyone involved. The park began to buzz with life, and Jenna noticed the community coming together in ways she had never expected. No longer was it just about a park, it was about creating connections, forging friendships, and rebuilding trust. As the day drew to a close, Jenna found herself standing next to the mayor, watching families play together. Look at all of this, he said softly, a warmth in his voice. It feels real now, Jenna replied, her voice almost a whisper. The mayor turned to her, his expression serious, and you were a crucial part of that. Jenna felt her face flush with pride, a sense of ownership settled in her heart. They were not just building a community center, they were rebuilding the community itself. A week later, while attending a town hall meeting, the energy in the room felt unlike anything Jenna had experienced before. Residents were energized, sharing ideas, challenging each other to think bigger. The mayor responded with genuine enthusiasm, and Jenna felt herself caught in the tide of passion flowing through the gathering. And now I'd like to introduce Jenna, who has been instrumental in our planning process, the mayor announced, bringing her to the front of the room. Jenna's heart raced with a blend of pride and fear. She felt like the spotlight was hot and heavy on her. But as she stood there, facing her neighbors and friends, she realized how far she had come. The doubts that had once weighed her down were beginning to lift. Thank you, everyone. This isn't just my work, it's our work, she began, her voice steadying. The crowd erupted in applause, and Jenna felt her heart swell. She had spoken from the heart, and they had all responded. The mayor stood beside her, beaming with pride. Together, we can achieve anything. When the meeting concluded, Jenna couldn't believe it. They were building something real. Later that night, sitting in her living room, she reflected on her journey, how one simple handshake had changed everything. The mayor's promise turned into a collective vision, igniting the community spirit in ways she had never anticipated. It was infectious. People were rallying together, growing more excited about creating spaces where laughter would echo and memories would blossom. But even amid this progress, a part of her still wrestled with doubt. What if this momentum faded? What if the mayor slipped back into old habits? But as those thoughts circulated, she remembered the faces, the laughter, and the community coming alive. She couldn't let her fear overshadow their achievements. One evening, while flipping through photos from their recent community cleanup, Jenna spotted an image of the mayor shaking hands with kids, their faces glowing with joy. She couldn't help but smile. In that moment, she knew the connections they had forged mattered. Weeks turned into months, and small victories filled the air. The park became a focal point for families, laughter echoing between the trees, children's voices creating a symphony of joy. One Saturday, Jenna stood at the entrance, the sun casting warm rays over the park's freshly painted mural, flowers blooming vibrantly in the community garden they had created. The mayor arrived and approached her with that familiar grin. "Jenna, this is incredible." "It is," she responded, pride swelling in her chest. He stepped back and took in the scene, then looked at her with pure sincerity. "You played an important role in this." They exchanged another handshake, but this one felt different, deeper, almost like a silent commitment. In that moment, Jenna felt an unbreakable bond, the melding of community spirit, trust, and hope. As the sun set, casting a golden hue over everything, Jenna reflected on how much strength could be found in unity. She had gone from rolling her eyes in doubt to embracing a vital role in her community. And as she watched families gather, friends laugh, and the park fill with life, Jenna knew the journey was just beginning. Together, they had not just shaken hands, they had laid the groundwork for a new future filled with infinite possibilities. Their stories intertwined, every voice contributing to a chorus of change, and she felt secure in one truth: the power of community could revive even the heaviest of hearts. Every smile, every shared moment, they continued to build something beautiful, one step, one handshake, one dream at a time. The town square buzzed with excitement, the air thick with anticipation. Jenna stood on the fringes of the crowd, arms crossed, feeling the familiar weight of skepticism pressing down on her. There he was, the mayor, stepping onto the stage with a confident stride, a practiced smile plastered across his face. "Here we go again," she muttered under her breath, her eyes narrowed. She felt her friend Sarah's elbow jab her side. "Come on, Jenna, this could be good." Jenna rolled her eyes, glancing toward the crowd that hung on the mayor's every word, as if he held some magical key to their happiness. The park was in disrepair, and promises of renovations had long faded into hollow echoes. All she could think about were the broken swings, the overgrown grass, and the sadness that hung heavy like fog around the neglected space. The words resonated through the square, and Jenna resisted the urge to let out a scoff. They'd envisioned brighter futures before, only for them to vanish like mist. People clapped and cheered, enthusiasm seeping into the atmosphere. She felt out of sync, as if the world had moved on without her while she remained frozen in a state of doubt. The mayor continued, outlining grand plans for a community center where families could gather, a space for children to play, and a hub for local events. He declared, raising his hands as if to summon the heavens. "More like a centerpiece for disappointment," Jenna whispered to herself, grimacing, but Sarah nudged her again. "You can't keep thinking this way." Jenna shook her head. "He's just telling them what they want to hear." Suddenly, a little girl stepped forward, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. "Mister," she called out, her voice ringing clear as she captured everyone's attention. "Can we have a big slide?" The crowd cooed, sharing in the little girl's innocence. Jenna couldn't help but soften a little. There was something pure in that moment, joyful, unfiltered hope. Maybe she was too jaded. The mayor knelt down to meet the girl's gaze. "Absolutely," he exclaimed, ruffling her hair, which elicited a wave of giggles from the crowd. And guess what? A murmur of excitement rippled through the audience, and Jenna felt another flicker of something in her chest. Was it hope? No, it couldn't be. She shook her head, trying to dispel the feelings rising within her. As the mayor wrapped up, he began to call people up for questions, inviting them to share their ideas. A middle-aged man stepped up, voice filled with determination. "This time we want accountability," the mayor replied. Jenna felt the tension thrum in the air. The crowd nodded along, but Jenna merely rolled her eyes again. She couldn't help herself. For every promise he made, she could recall too many disappointments. She felt like a ghost among the living, a haunting reminder of unfinished dreams. "Just wait until he leaves," she said to Sarah, who was still caught up in the moment. But as the mayor engaged more with the crowd, Jenna felt a tug of curiosity. She watched as people moved forward, shaking hands, brighter smiles filling the air. Something was different this time. The smart part of her said to stand firm in her doubt, but the rest of her felt a strange pull, a desire to be part of something bigger than her own disillusionment. She lingered, and the atmosphere thickened with energy and camaraderie. Residents were rallying, voices rising in hopeful debates about what the park could be. Someone shouted, and the crowd erupted in applause. Finally, it was Jenna's turn to step forward. She felt the weight of the eyes surrounding her again, and the mayor gestured her to the stage. Jenna took a shaky breath, squaring her shoulders. I think we need to focus on more than just swings and slides. The mayor beamed at her, his enthusiasm contagious. Exactly, a place for everyone, that's what we're aiming for. As she stepped back, she noticed some people nodding, affirming her words. A warmth enveloped her, perhaps she needed to give this a chance. After the meeting, a crowd began to disperse, but Jenna stayed behind, feeling an impulse to talk to the mayor. The path felt foreign but exciting. She approached him hesitantly, heart pounding the whole way. He greeted warmly, shaking her hand once again, but this time it felt different. "Thank you for your input," she asked, her heart racing. He leaned in, sincerity etched in his expression. "That's why I'm here. I want you and everyone involved. Your voice matters, and we're in this together." For the first time, she saw sincerity in his eyes, a reflection of determination that felt palpable. A flicker of hope ignited within her. In the weeks to follow, Jenna became fully immersed in the planning process. Teams were formed, ideas flowed like a rushing river, and one proposal sparked a wildfire of excitement. They envisioned the park as a gathering place, an oasis where families could flourish and kids could play without fear. Every time they met, Jenna felt her doubts fade further into the background. She was energized by the possibility of what could be. And the mayor, he showed up time and time again, assuring them this was more than just talk. He listened and took notes, turning ideas into tangible plans. One sunny Saturday, the community gathered for a park cleanup. Air filled with laughter as children ran around and adults worked side by side. Jenna stood back, absorbing the scene, marveling at the transformation. Was this really happening? The mayor arrived, a genuine grin lighting up his face. "You all are doing fantastic work," he called out, raking debris with enthusiasm. Jenna couldn't help but smile. Each day felt like a step forward, a small victory reclaiming what had been lost. But as weeks turned into months, the shadows of doubt sometimes crept in. Despite the fresh blooms and laughter, there was a lingering worry. What if the mayor became distant? What would happen if they didn't get the support they needed from the town council? At one evening meeting in the community center, the mayor stood before everyone, excitement bubbling in his voice. "We've secured funding for the park renovations." Cheers erupted around her, and Jenna felt a rush of euphoria. They'd actually done it, but a creeping anxiety lingered too. She blurted out, trying to suppress her worries. The mayor's smile faltered slightly. "It'll take a few months to get the plans submitted and finalized." Tension surged through the air, and Jenna felt a bubble of doubt rise. She tried to ignore it. This was supposed to be a moment of victory, yet her initial feeling of hope felt fragile, like glass hanging by a thread. Days turned into weeks, and every meeting turned into a dance of excitement and unease. For every positive announcement, Jenna felt the shadows of doubt creeping in, a mockery of her hopes lurking just beneath the surface. Then came the fateful night when they held a community gathering to present the final plans for the park. Jenna was brimming with anticipation, but also with anxiety. She felt the mixed emotions brewing inside as she took her place among her neighbors, excitement buzzing in the air. The mayor stepped onto the stage, his confident smile returning. "I'm thrilled to show you what we have in store." But just as he began to unveil the plans, the lights flickered and dimmed, the projector sputtering to life. Instead of vibrant images, the room was filled with uncertainty. A nervous energy swept through the crowd. "Hold on," said the mayor, adjusting the equipment. As a few moments ticked by, Jenna noticed whispers circulating among the crowd. Fear crept into her heart. This wasn't how it should be. Finally, the presentation came alive. Expected images flashed across the screen, every detail a reflection of the dreams they had shared. But as the crowd began to murmur in excitement, Jenna observed a few faces turning concerned. "Is this?" a woman asked, her voice trembling. Jenna's heart sank. The growing tension was palpable. It was as if the air thickened with doubt, sinking into an uncomfortable place. Would they truly deliver? Would it only be another loss? The mayor struggled to maintain control, trying to recover them. He declared, but even his voice faltered slightly as he spoke. Suddenly, another voice joined in the echo of uncertainty. "This isn't just about pretty pictures." The atmosphere shifted. Every person in the room felt the weight of doubt gather like dark clouds overhead. Jenna's chest tightened. Had she leaped into blind optimism too soon? As the questions grew louder and more urgent, Jenna's resolve began to fracture. She had pushed herself to believe, to advocate for something new, but what if it wasn't enough? She traded anxious glances with Sarah, whose face mirrored the anxiety roiling within her. It was a moment of reckoning, and Jenna felt the pull of past disappointment threatening to swallow her whole. When the meeting ended, the crowd dispersed with a mixture of hope and uncertainty hanging thick in the air. The mayor was being cornered by frustrated residents trying to quell the rising discontent. Jenna felt an impulse to speak up, to join the fray, but fear held her back. After the crowd thinned, she felt fueled by frustration. "Mister," she called out, taking a few steps toward him. He turned, his smile fading as he met her concerned gaze. "Jenna, I understand you're feeling anxious. We can manage this, but you promised us someone accountable." Jenna shot back, unwilling to mask the doubt lingering in her heart. Had she been foolish to lean on his promises? The mayor's expression softened. "I can assure you we're still committed. But as Jenna looked into his eyes, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the past. It loomed over her like an eclipsed sun, casting long shadows through her heart. The next meeting came quickly, tension still simmering beneath the surface. Jenna squeezed Sarah's hand tightly as people voiced their frustrations over problems that seemed unresolved. "I just can't shake this feeling," Jenna admitted quietly. But then the mayor arrived, his energy filling the room with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "Everyone, let's settle down." Jenna's heart raced. The mayor was trying, but the crowd was still restless. As he began speaking, it was clear this was a pivotal moment, a chance to either collapse into doubt or soar into hope. With breath held, Jenna watched as the room swayed like a tide, unsure whether to embrace possibility or retreat back into skepticism. And in that unexpected moment, she realized the journey they had all embarked upon was about to take an unforeseen turn. Would it lead them closer to their vision, or would the hope they had fought to build crumble before their very eyes? With everything hanging in the balance, Jenna took a deep breath, ready to venture into the uncertainty ahead. This was not just a community's future at stake, it was her own, firmly tied to a handshake and a dream she was unwilling to let slip into darkness. As the mayor began to speak, Jenna felt the storm of emotions swirling around her, knowing that whatever happened next would decide the fate of countless dreams. Would this be the moment they had all waited for, or would it all come crashing down? Only time would tell, and she wouldn't back down without a fight.